Imagine showing up for a company trip, only to find out your boss forgot your ticket. Meet Harold, a seasoned SE who's been targeted by his vindictive boss, Philip, and left out of a company retreat. But when Harold turns the tables and shows up in Hawaii ahead of everyone, the real shock begins. How did he manage to get there? And why is the company president by his side? Watch how this office drama unfolds with a twist that leaves everyone stunned. My bad. Looks like I forgot your plane ticket. These unbelievable words were thrown at me as I arrived at the airport on the day of the company retreat. My boss, Philip, had harassed me before, but this time he had gone too far. There was never a ticket for you in the first place. Hearing this, my colleagues burst into laughter. Seeing their faces, full of amusement at my expense, I finally realized the truth. Philip and my colleagues had planned from the start to exclude me and make me the butt of their joke. The malice and pettiness of their actions made my whole body tremble with anger. But in just a few hours, their smug faces would turn to ones of terror. My name is Harold Turner. I'm 45 years old and work as a systems engineer. Both of my parents worked in computer-related jobs, and my childhood toys were not video games, but thick computer manuals. Instead of computer games, I received a hobby computer capable of programming for my birthday, and I was instantly hooked. For me, my parents were not only beloved family members, but also the most knowledgeable computer experts I knew. Dinner time, where I could talk about computers with my parents, was the most enjoyable part of my day. I continued to grow as a computer enthusiast, joining the computer club in both middle and high school. I just wanted to enjoy programming with my friends, but my advisor suggested I enter a programming contest. I created content to help beginners learn programming in a fun way, and to my surprise, I won an award. I was recognized at school, and some classmates even told me they experienced programming for the first time through my creation. Computers always seem difficult, but the one you made is really fun. I remember my face getting hot with embarrassment and happiness as classmates, whom I had never spoken to, praised me one after another. This experience might have played a big part in my decision to become a systems engineer. I gained experience as an in-house system engineer at various companies. An in-house system engineer's job covers everything related to IT within the company. My role involved setting up the IT environment to ensure smooth operations. Of course, I wrote programs, but I was also responsible for managing IT equipment, proposing system implementations, and handling daily system operations, maintenance, and the physical management of digital devices like PCs, smartphones, and tablets. I was also in charge of security measures for these devices and had to respond to various troubleshooting requests and inquiries from all departments within the company. If there was anything related to it that the company didn't understand, it all fell under the responsibility of us system engineers, making our role extremely important. I worked for Monrays Corporation, a general trading company handling cosmetics and daily necessities, where I was involved in developing new systems, managing the internal help desk, and maintaining code. Fortunately, I was welcomed by kind colleagues and enjoyed a comfortable working environment. However, my life took a dramatic turn one day. The catalyst was the arrival of a new manager due to a personnel transfer. The new manager, Philip Murphy, was a man in his 50s who had previously worked in the sales department. We couldn't understand why someone with no experience in it was appointed as the head of our IT department, and my colleagues and I were puzzled. Later, we heard that Philip had been transferred after causing conflicts in the sales department by trying to impose his methods on others. The upper management thought that if they placed him in the IT department, where he knew nothing, he wouldn't be able to cause any trouble and would just be a figurehead. However, what the upper management didn't expect was that Philip was highly motivated. As a result, from that day on, we system engineers found ourselves under tremendous pressure. Now that I'm here, You'll be working efficiently. Don't think you can slack off like before." On his first day, during the morning meeting, Philip made this declaration while standing with his arms crossed. We exchanged uneasy glances, but from the next day, Philip started interfering with our work. He began counting the number of tasks we handled each day and posted the numbers on the wall. Displayed as bar graphs, it looked like the sales department competing for targets, causing anxiety among my colleagues. The task numbers increased as we responded to system issues and helped employees. If we didn't reach the targets set by Philip, he would yell at us for not trying hard enough. "Harold, I see you didn't report anything last week. Were you even working?" "My current job is system maintenance. I reported that there were no urgent issues." I answered politely, but Philip wasn't satisfied. "Nothing happened? So you were slacking off?" "No, regular maintenance is necessary to prevent problems." I tried to explain, but Philip frowned and didn't listen. He even started flipping through some files mid-conversation. Apparently, the files were my personnel records from HR. After staring at the contents for a while, Philip smirked unpleasantly. "You're 45 and have worked at various companies. Couldn't stay at one place, huh? Must be pretty incompetent." He said that and waved his hand dismissively, indicating that I should leave. I never thought I'd be called incompetent to my face, and I was utterly stunned. Sure, I've worked at several companies, but I've always delivered satisfactory results, and it was the same at Monterey's Corporation, where I currently work. I've always given my all and have never deserved to be called incompetent. Perhaps I should have thoroughly explained the role of a system engineer and my work rules to Philip. But I never imagined that the manager in charge of the IT department wouldn't bother to learn about it. Hoping to avoid conflict, I kept quiet. I also believed that if he saw my work, he would understand my value. Rather than confront him directly, I thought it would be better to get along through work. But this approach ended in complete failure. From the next day, Philip targeted me for harassment. I had worked at many companies, but I'd never experienced such treatment before. Several younger employees resigned because of Philip's unreasonable reforms, but instead of addressing this issue, he became even more determined to enforce his policies. He seemed to think that the remaining employees wouldn't easily leave the company. Additionally, he didn't understand the tasks he should handle as a manager, so he delegated everything to us and started leaving work on time. We routinely worked until the last train and continued working from home. As this continued, the atmosphere in the department became increasingly tense. People realized that if they pleased Philip, they could avoid unreasonable quotas and overtime, so everyone started competing to get on his good side. Eventually, the entire department began to treat me as an outcast. As a result, I was stuck with almost all the troublesome tasks, making my workload even harder. I couldn't even take proper breaks and gradually lost the ability to think, focusing only on completing my tasks. One day, while dealing with another troublesome issue as usual, Philip suddenly declared, "It's about time to start planning the company trip. I've been tasked with organizing it again this year." Hearing the word trip, the surrounding employees started getting excited. "The company trips here are extravagant, all expenses paid by the company as a token of appreciation for our work." Every year, a famous tourist destination was chosen, and it was rumored that some employees joined the company just for these trips. However, I felt too exhausted to even think about traveling and continued working, when suddenly, Philip tapped me on the shoulder. "Harold, what are you going to do about the company trip? This year, we're going all out to Hawaii, and it seems everyone in our department is attending. I'll join as well." I hesitated a bit, but expressed my intention to participate. I thought that talking and eating in a different environment might help build better relationships with the other employees. Hearing my response, Philip smirked. "Of course, you will. A poor employee like you, with a low salary, wouldn't miss this chance. You wouldn't get another opportunity to go to Hawaii with the company footing the bill." "No, that's not exactly the reason." I tried to correct him, but Philip loudly continued with a grin. Got it. Just make sure you're not late on the day. We can't have you slacking off at work and then showing up late for the trip. Okay. There was no point in saying anything more. I swallowed my frustration and thanked him. Philip seemed satisfied with himself and returned to his desk, laughing loudly. Even so, I still held on to hope. I wished that through this company trip, I could get along with everyone like before. With that in mind, I faced the mountain of work, looking forward to the trip day. A month before the trip, invitations were sent out to each department. They were nicely made, showing how much the CO valued us employees. The details of the schedule and destination are listed. The hotel looks pretty good. I'm excited about the sightseeing spots too. Filled with anticipation, I marked my attendance and submitted it to Philip. It seemed that everyone in the apartment was participating. As he counted the attendance forms, Philip cheerfully exclaimed, "Let's have a blast at the destination. No formalities. Harold, if you're joining, make sure you finish your work properly. It's not pleasant to see someone bringing work on a trip." He seemed to be in high spirits and even joked with me, smiling broadly. Yes, I will. Looking forward to the trip. I might finally be able to improve my relationship with Philip this time. With that hope in mind, I returned to my desk with a light step. I had no idea that my expectations would be so easily shattered. On the day of the company trip, I arrived at the airport ahead of the time indicated on the invitation. I left home early to avoid being late, so there were only a few other employees at the meeting spot when I arrived. The airport was bustling with planes taking off and landing nonstop, and passengers getting on and off in a flurry due to the holiday season. While chatting and waiting, more employees began to trickle in as the meeting time approached. I heard that the CO and upper management had already departed on a separate flight. The remaining employees received their plane tickets according to their departments. Since the tickets were purchased online as a group, each employee received their boarding pass with a QR code via email. I lined up with the other system engineers to get my ticket from Philip. Philip, who seemed very excited about the trip to Hawaii, was already in a short-sleeved shirt at the airport. My colleagues received their tickets one after another and started walking towards the boarding gate. Did everyone get their ticket? All right, let's head out. Excuse me, I haven't received mine yet. Before I knew it, I was the only one left without a ticket. Despite this, Philip acted as if he couldn't see me and started moving towards the boarding gate. When I hurriedly called out to him, Philip turned around with a surprised look on his face. "Huh, what are you doing here? I thought you weren't coming on the trip, Harold?" "I'm participating. I submitted the attendance form to you, Philip. Where's my plane ticket?" As I asked, a chill ran down my spine, sensing something was wrong. Philip gave me a nasty grin. "Oh, right. I thought you were staying behind to work as usual. My bad. Looks like I forgot your plane ticket." With that, Philip tried to walk away as if nothing had happened. "Wait, how am I supposed to get to the destination?" "I don't know, and I don't care. We're all going on the trip now. Don't start causing trouble." His dismissive attitude made my voice grow louder. "What do you mean you don't know? This is a company event, isn't it? Can't you at least contact the travel agency? You're persistent, aren't you? Why don't you just give up? If your stubbornness delays our departure and ruins the trip, what then?" By then, other employees had noticed our argument and started gathering around. Colleagues who returned to see what was happening asked Philip for an explanation. "Harold here wants to come on the trip, but I didn't get him a ticket in the first place." Hearing this, my colleagues burst into laughter. "Finally realized, huh? Gotcha." Look at Harold's face. Seeing their expressions, filled with malicious glee, I finally understood. Philip and my colleagues had planned from the beginning to exclude and mock me. The sheer malice of their scheme made my whole body tremble with rage. Philip's and his cronies' loud laughter was so disruptive that it made other passengers frown. After a while, Philip finally caught his breath, still chuckling, and said to me, "I canceled your trip for your own good, you know." "What do you mean?" I frowned, feeling indignant. He continued, laughing heartily. "The hotel and flight costs are covered by the company. But if a poor guy like you gets a taste of luxury, You'll find it hard to go back to work when you return. So, I thought it was better for you to stay behind and work alone. Now I fully understand what kind of person you are, Philip, and my colleagues seem to be just as bad as you. Got it. Leaving them with those words, I turned my back on Philip and the others. Their raucous laughter followed me as I walked away, but their smiles would soon turn to looks of terror in just a few hours. A few hours later, when Philip and his group arrived at the airport at their destination, they stretched and enjoyed the bright atmosphere. Gosh, Hawaii is exceptional. This is the best company trip ever. Maybe it's so refreshing because that gloomy Harold isn't here. At a colleague's light-hearted remark, Philip laughed out loud. However, as the group exited the airport, "Finally here? What took you guys so long?" "Huh?" I was already seated in the reserved shuttle bus. Philip and the others stood there, mouths agape. "How? Why are you in Hawaii? You didn't have a plane ticket. You couldn't have arrived before us." Seeing Philip's frantic shouting, I struggled to suppress my laughter. "It's simple. It's peak tourist season, with 5 flights an hour. I bought a ticket for an earlier flight." "You bought a ticket? But where did you get the money? And all flights should be fully booked this time of year," Philip shouted, spitting in his panic. Economy class was full, but a seat opened up by chance in first class. Hearing my response, Philip's face turned even paler as he was left speechless. During peak seasons like this, there are numerous flights a day between Los Angeles International Airport and Honolulu International Airport. At times, there are as many as 5 flights an hour on this busy route. When I realized I didn't have a plane ticket, I immediately headed to the airport counter. I inquired about any available seats on flights to Hawaii. Luckily, I found out there had been a cancellation, and I bought the ticket on the spot. I had already enjoyed my flight to Hawaii ahead of everyone else. Even after hearing my explanation, Philip, still unconvinced, snapped back at me. "Liar! There's no way a poor employee like you could afford a first-class ticket. Did you blow all your living expenses just to join this trip? Did you want to be part of the company trip that badly? Poor employee? What are you talking about?" A senior man beside me leaned forward to address Philip. Upon seeing his bewildered face, Philip gave a short scream and jumped. "Mr. King, why are you here with Harold? This is our company trip." I came to greet Harold, who has been working hard for us. The person waiting with me on the shuttle bus was David King, the CEO of Monorace Corporation. Usually, Mr. King was kind and thoughtful towards employees, but now he was glaring sharply at Philip. "Moreover, your behavior has been extremely rude." "I'd like to hear the details." "I was just cautioning my subordinate, Harold. He suddenly insisted on joining the trip, disrupting our group's harmony." Philip, waving his hands, started spinning a tale that suited his narrative. However, Mr. King, far from convinced, furrowed his brow in anger. "Don't speak nonsense. Harold is a highly skilled freelance system engineer we've hired. Though he's assigned to your department, he's on the same level as you. No, he's even more important than you. More important than me. That's impossible." Philip turned pale and trembled all over. "I was not an employee of this company, but a freelance system engineer, and I have worked with many companies in the past." Philip assumed I was an employee who frequently changed jobs, but in reality, I was contracted by the company for my services. Instead of hiring an in-house engineer, the advantage of utilizing freelance engineers is the flexibility in employment. When a company lacks suitable personnel for a specific task, they can hire us, freelancers, as immediate assets. Once major tasks like development are completed and enter the maintenance phase, highly specialized engineers are not always needed. In such cases, freelance contracts can be concluded upon completion of the project, ultimately lowering the running costs for the company. I was introduced to Harold as a highly skilled system engineer, and that's why he's working for us. Yet you've been treating him disrespectfully, calling him poor. How could you not even read the provided documents properly? I'm sorry. It was just a small misunderstanding. I didn't mean any harm. Please forgive me." Reprimanded directly by the president, Philip was trembling pathetically, almost collapsing onto the street. After that, we gathered Philip to avoid disturbing others and moved to the accommodation with the other employees. Since it was a special company trip, Mr. King refrained from further reprimanding Philip during the stay in Hawaii. However, not being scolded seemed to increase his anxiety. Despite being excited about the trip to Hawaii, Philip remained nervous and couldn't enjoy himself at all. On the other hand, I toured the scheduled sightseeing spots with Mr. King and became very fond of Hawaii. It was needless to say that I had a very meaningful trip, interacting with employees from other departments. After returning from the trip, Philip and the colleagues who harassed me continued working in a subdued manner. They seemed to be anxious about potential pay cuts or other penalties. But the reality unfolded in an unexpected way. It turned out that Philip was lured by a rival company and had been selling our company's information. A shocking revelation. Apparently, Philip harbored a deep grudge for being removed from the sales department. Instead of acknowledging that the trouble he caused with subordinates was the reason, he blamed the company for not recognizing his abilities. That's when the rival company approached him, offering favorable terms in exchange for company information. I've dedicated 30 years to sales. If I'm getting transferred to some other department, I'd rather destroy the company. Philip fell for that temptation, handing over documents with confidential information about top talent and potential products. But the rival company mainly wanted information from our IT department. That's why they targeted Philip, but he was practically a novice. Stealing information unnoticed was impossible for him. Moreover, when he got the offer, I was handling most of the system engineer duties. So, without me, he couldn't get the necessary information. That's why Philip's harassment towards me intensified, hoping I'd quit on my own. However, since I remained dedicated and showed no sign of quitting, Philip became desperate. He devised a plan to exclude me from this company trip. If only you had quit willingly, I wouldn't have had such a hard time. I thought you'd leave if you became alienated during the trip. Philip crushed my participation form and intentionally left out my ticket. But contrary to his expectation, Harold bought his own ticket. On top of that, his misdeeds were exposed in front of me. You harassed me with baseless accusations because I wouldn't quit. If the isolation had continued, I might have resigned, or at least not extended my contract. Once I left, with everyone else slacking, Philip could have easily stolen information. Without someone like me guarding, his plan would have succeeded. Harold is the cornerstone of our internal system. If he had left halfway, our damage would have been immeasurable. Philip hung his head and sank to the floor when he heard Mr. King's comment. What followed happened surprisingly quickly. Philip was caught contacting the rival company in a panic. The next day, the company bulletin board displayed the disciplinary actions, listing the names of Philip and Ed department employees who harassed me. Why am I the only one being fired? Philip, who received the harshest punishment, raged with his shoulders tense. Naturally, Philip was found guilty of deliberately leaking information to a rival company, which constituted a breach of confidentiality, leading to disciplinary action. He turned red with anger and protested, but we had the investigation documents as solid evidence. Don't you get it? What you did is unforgivable. The company is terminating your employment for cause. No severance pay will be given, Mr. King declared firmly. Philip collapsed to the floor and began crying loudly, ignoring everyone around him. Among the department colleagues, some had helped Philip with the fraud, standing in shock, sweating coldly. It was a miserable scene, but it was all their own doing, deserving no sympathy. They had to face the consequences of their actions. Thus, the chaos that started with Philip finally came to an end. After being fired, Philip looked for another job, but rumors of his attempt to sell information to a rival spread, and no company would hire him. He was also abandoned by his family and got divorced. His wife and children took all the property and the house as alimony and child support, leaving him with nothing. Since then, he's been working various temporary jobs, such as traffic control and road construction. Those colleagues who had harassed me and helped the rival company were also fired. However, The rest of the employees, who showed genuine remorse, continued to work. I will judge you by your future work. Do your best with what you can do now. Mr. King's warm words prompted the employees to apologize to me once more. After that, they worked in a calm atmosphere, like in the early days. As for me, I finally finished the system development and left work on time for the first time in ages. I relaxed at home. The tasks that I had been doing almost entirely by myself were completed much faster with the cooperation of my colleagues. While working together, they were once again amazed at my skills. If I have more time to share my knowledge and work together, they will surely grow into good system engineers. When that time comes, it might be time for me to leave this company. Wherever you are, in whatever situation, do your job properly. My father quietly spoke to me as I muttered to myself. My mother nodded beside him, enjoying our first family dinner together in a long time. When I think about it, my goal of becoming a system engineer started by watching my parents working diligently from a young age. I will continue to respect my clients and build good relationships with my colleagues like my parents did. Helping each other is the key to creating a great environment. Thinking about that, I head to the office today as well. To complete my work with pride, I'll face my computer today as usual.